of $480,291.41 for a total of $837,632.73.
Second.
All right, we have a motion by Councilman Pronto, second by Councilwoman Salisbury. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Is there anything additional that we need to discuss?
No, Your Honor.
All right, seeing none, we'll adjourn at 6:46.
Now call the June 7th, 2022 regular council meeting of the Riverton City Council to order at 7 p.m. Councilwoman Cox, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please? And Councilman Bailey, could you do our invocation?
Sure.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our dearest Heavenly Father, thank you for the many blessings that we enjoy. Please bless us in all that we do tonight. Help us to make good decisions for this city of Riverton and all its residents. Please pour out your protection on all of the military and police and fire and emergency services personnel that risk their lives every day to help us. Please bless it all that we do, and it will be in your service. We ask this in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen.
Thanks, Lindsay. I should have mentioned that earlier. Mike, same thing. Appreciate you.
You're fine.
Would the city clerk please conduct roll call?
Yes, Your Honor. Councilwoman Carla Borders.
Here.
Councilwoman Lindsay Cox.
Here.
Councilman Mike Bailey.
Here.
Councilman Dean Pronto.
Here.
Councilman Kyle Larson.
Here.
Councilwoman Christy Salisbury.
Here.
Mayor Richard Gard.
Here. I declare that we have a quorum present. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Paranto has a motion.
It's me.
Thanks. Councilwoman Cox has a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Communication from the floor, citizens' comment. Anyone in the audience wishing to address the council regarding an item that is scheduled for a public hearing will be given the opportunity to speak during that public hearing. Anyone wishing to address the council on any other item may speak now. I ask those individuals who wish to address the council at this time to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm Carol Harper. Most of you know me as a Riverton ambassador and also a reporter for County 10. I'm not here for County 10 tonight. I'm here as a citizen of Riverton and a chamber member and one of the founding board members of the Riverton Ambassadors. However, as a reporter, I find that the why questions always seem to be the hardest ones to get answers for. Who, what, when, where, and how, not too hard to get most of the time. But then there's the whys. I'm here to talk about the Chamber of Commerce. And the questions I had is like, what is a chamber and what does a chamber mean for businesses and the community? Who is at the helm of the chamber? How are they nominated and voted in? When and where does a chamber meet in consideration of business hours, community activities, and personal family time? And how does a chamber serve its members and its community? In the forming of a new Y Riverton Chamber and Visitor Center, and still yet unconfirmed merge with the Riverton Ambassadors, why was there suddenly a breakdown of communication, transparency, and a departure from current bylaws and mission statements that were supposed to be about moving Riverton forward? When did working as a whole team fail? Why did they start excluding and ignoring members and volunteers who had given so much of their time, talent, and treasure? What do bylaws and mission statements even mean if they're not even adhered to? Most of the time, we do what we're told without questioning. Many times, things are passed in city councils and commissioners' meetings where public might be unaware or uninformed beforehand, and I'm not creating an excuse for the public. It's quite the opposite. For example, Riverton City Council has its agendas, agenda packets, and minutes posted on their website for the public. That type of transparency is commendable and should be a structure for many organizations. The mayor doesn't act alone. Even he and Tony don't act alone. No council member, no city staff acts alone. Given that no system is perfect, at least there should be teamwork and communication and transparency for things to not only work and flow, but to establish that element of trust. If one, few, or even all of our city council or even law enforcement just made their own decisions, pushed their own agendas, and could just categorically pass ordinances without oversight, transparency, or notice, how would that fly with the public? Or just appointed yourselves another term of office without nomination or a vote? Or like what we're doing right now, what if the city council just ignored public comment or input without discussion or consideration? How would that fly? So why would that fly with the chamber membership, with any membership? Why would the assumed positioning of a brand-new board, even an ad hoc board, without nomination or vote by its general membership be acceptable? What about those who don't agree with this merger, or those who haven't been given enough information to make an education decision about it and cast their vote? Under current chamber bylaws, in May there was supposed to be a nominating committee set up for elections of a new board. This was not done. Notification of nominations was supposed to be sent out to all chamber members. This was not done. The executive director was to notify the membership of their right to petition additional candidates. This was not done. Ballots and voting instructions were to be distributed by the executive director to all members. This was not done. Also, according to chamber bylaws, after 30 days, ballots were supposed to be gathered and tallied by the executive director. The next chamber board meeting is this Thursday. As a chamber member, I should just blindly accept this merger and the new board created by this committee without oversight or regard to current bylaws, not to mention a vote from their general membership? And why, when real questions and concerns were being raised, they were skirted or ignored, and all we got was, stay tuned, great things are happening. I know it's cliche to say that there's no I in team, but I believe it's applicable here. When we make it about ourselves and our own agendas, there is no team. When we ask the who, what, when, where, why, and how questions and get no responses or are ignored, there is no team. When we give concessions to a select few, ignore or take a departure from rules and procedures, whether it's local, state, federal, tribal, or bylaws, and just push agendas without any oversight, there is no team. When gossip and backbiting occur, hurting people's businesses and livelihoods, hurting friends, families, and neighbors, there is no team. So if this is how a chamber, a business organization, does business, again, what does a chamber mean? And what does it mean to be a member of an organization that does these things? You cannot just pretend there's a team when there's not. I stood right here around this podium in April, excited about the merger of the chamber and the ambassadors. You all know that I've given my time, talent, and treasure, and had planned on continuing to do so. But along the way, I had been excluded. Plans and decisions were being made behind closed doors. When I questioned processes happening without oversight or vote, I got ambiguous responses or was ignored. Apparently, I wasn't a valued member of the team anymore, and if I had anything to say or contribute, it wasn't worth consideration or merit. United we stand, divided we fall. This seems to be a theme with variations, not only in this situation with the chamber, but even a few corporate businesses who come into town outside of Wyoming to assume control, who fail to listen and discount the voices of locals who have been here, lived here, have experience and ideas and insight and expertise to lend in order to work together in making a vision come to its fruition. Unfortunately, this has been my experience in some job capacities and as a volunteer. I don't do what I do because of some agenda, aspirations, position, perks, or a title. I do what I do, whether it's a job or as a volunteer, or even as an individual, to serve and support my community in the best way that I can. Lastly, and I'll give another example as a reporter, I hope that everyone knows that there are many sides of a story. Even when the truth is difficult to find, I always hope to find some facts, some threads of truth, and not be distracted by fake news. That, at least for me, could be that I part of any team that I'm on. In that, I hope that we can do this. I hope that we're all on the same page. I hope that we can all contribute our time, talents, and treasure to something great. But when there's little or no transparency, oversight, communication, or trust, how can anything be made rock solid if the very foundation is made of sand? Thank you for listening.
Thanks, Carol. Is there anyone else wishing to address the council? Council have any comments? Seeing none, we'll move on. Consent agenda. Would the city clerk please read the consent agenda items as presented by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Approval of the minutes, May 17th, 2022, regular council meeting. Approval of the minutes, May 17th, 2022, executive session. Approval of the minutes, May 24th, 2022, council work session. Approval of the minutes, June 7th, 2022, finance committee meeting. Approval of the finance committee recommendations for June 7th, 2022. And a replat for Mountain View Acres 4th subdivision, Lot 2, petitioner Jeffrey Menzies.
Thank you. Are there any items requiring further discussion?
Your Honor, the Finance Committee met earlier this evening and approved the consideration of claims to be paid in the amount of $355,253.67, manual checks in the amount of $2,087.65, payroll and liabilities for May 20th, 2022 in the amount of $480,291.41, for a total of $837,632.73.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve, to approve the consent agenda items as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Larson has the motion. Councilwoman Borders has the second. Council discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Public, item number 9, public hearing and consideration of fireworks permit application, Riverton Rendezvous and Riverton Little League. City Clerk's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. Mayor and council, before you tonight for your consideration are 2 firework permit applications. The first is from Riverton Rendezvous Committee for the annual balloon rally fireworks display at J.C. Park on July 16th, 2022, from 10 p.m. to 10:30 p.m. The second is from Riverton Little League for their championship celebration on June 30th, 2022, from 9:30 p.m. to 11 p.m. The conditions of both of these permit applications have been met, the proper fees have been paid, and letters of recommendation from the fire chief have also been received. Proper notice to the public has been advertised, and included in your packet is a map of where those fireworks will be displayed. Based on the information provided through the application process, staff recommends approval of the fireworks permit applications as presented. Thank you.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to open a public hearing in consideration of the Riverton Rendezvous and Riverton Little League fireworks permit.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Salisbury has a motion. Councilman Bailey has a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. I declare a public hearing open. The public hearing will be conducted in accordance with the state statutes and other applicable laws. I would ask those individuals wishing to address the council to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record. Seeing none that are interested in speaking, the chair would consider closing of the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Bailey has the motion. Carla, was that you?
Yes, Your Honor.
My left side right side's not working. Councilwoman Orders has the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the Riverton Rendezvous fireworks permit as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Dean Peranto has, Councilman Peranto has the motion. Councilwoman Cox has second. Any discussion?
Your Honor.
Kyle?
I'm just wondering if this would, if weather got worse, dried, would we look at postponing?
Yeah, the recommendation from the fire chief is included in our packet, and it won't go off without permission from the presiding fire official, and he will take into consideration weather conditions and anything that might
I mean,
hinder that.
I lit Griffey Hill on one time, so. with firecrackers, geez, and oh man, and once up at Ann's house, my neighbor's house, I burned their field with rockets, so, I love fireworks.
Move, we hide the matches from.
Yeah, I was gonna say, Chief, could you check the statutes of limitation?
Yes, yeah, I have.
We do appreciate your volunteering that information. I don't know how your attorney feels about it. We do have that acknowledgement that both of these permits from the fire chief will be, there'll be a fire official on premises at the time of igniting.
Thank you.
Okay? Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passed. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the Little League fireworks permit as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Cox has the motion. Councilwoman Salisbury has the second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Public hearing and consideration of ordinance number 22-005 on first reading, Riverton Municipal Code Title 17 zoning definition. Community Development Director's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor, Council. This definition addition was brought forth from the Planning Commission when City Council requested the Planning Commission provide research and recommendations regarding the R4 residential zoning. This definition relates directly to R4 zoning. Adding this definition in Riverton Municipal Code will allow developers to build open parking structures that follow engineering and building codes within the city of Riverton without impacting their percentage of lot coverage. And I'll go into more details on that. The definition as proposed, open parking garage means a type 1 or type 2 construction open on 2 or more sides. Uses exclusively for parking or storage of vehicles. A site is considered open when the total area of the distributed openings are not less than 50% of the exterior projected area. An engineered or standard approved foundation design is required for such structure. It is required to meet or exceed wind and snow loading per local design criteria. Planning Commission approved this ordinance 22-005, Title 17 zoning definition addition on May 5th, 2022. And the crux of this, and we'll get into the other portion of lot use and the changing of the R4 definition directly. But when we were looking at the R4 zoning and we're looking at the percentage of lot used, and we look at, I put a piece of paper out for everybody to look at, and it's a basic 1 acre lot that's divided up into 2 parts. And so we have, or 3 parts. The brown area is the required setbacks for that individual lot that we're not allowed to build on. And then we take a total lot of 43,560 square feet, which is an acre, and we're just using a random acre lot. On that lot with 50%, the way the ordinance is written today, with 50% of lot usage, we're allowed to build on 21,780 square foot of that 1 acre lot. If a developer wanted to have premium parking or higher end parking or covered parking in their parking lot for their structure, that covered parking would be considered a building and would count against that 50% of the lot use. So this definition was brought forth for the purpose of being able for a developer to add premium style parking in an uncovered or in a covered only parking spot and not affect his total overall lot usage. It's hard to get all of that verbiage directly in the definition. That is the purpose of the addition of this language, because otherwise, a structure is a structure. and the amount of square footage that structure takes that up. So when we look at that, if you want to take 25% of your parking lot and cover it, then you're taking a large footprint of your lot away that you're not allowed to build on just because of that 50% lot coverage. Some alternatives. In considering ordinance 22-005, the Planning Commission may explore the following, or City Council may explore the following alternative actions. Amend Riverton Municipal Code to add the definition for open parking garage, deny the request to change the ordinance and continue to follow current practices and codes, or approve the changes with amendments and or stipulations. Currently, adopting ordinance number 22-005 does not currently impact the budget. The City Council, the recommendation is that City Council adopt on first reading ordinance number 22-005, Title 17, zoning definition changes. And any and all questions pertaining to this, I'm free to ask when we get to that point.
Is that clear as mud for everybody?
I think it's a good deal.
Good idea, isn't it?
It adds value to that place. It makes it looks, so in my mind, I'm going, oh, I wondered why they were so screwed up and didn't put in parking places, because it subtracted. You know, this is a good idea.
Christie, did you get all your answers? Okay. Anybody else?
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
This is where I usually jump over Kristen, right?
It is.
Chris, would the community development, would the city clerk please read the ordinance by number 22-005 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 22-005 on first reading, an ordinance amending Title 17 zoning to revise Chapter 17.08 definitions, Section 17.08.010 definitions of the Riverton Municipal Code, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith, and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Larson has the motion. Councilman Bailey has the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Public hearing, motion passed. I declare the public hearing open. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with state statute and other applicable laws. I would ask those individuals wishing to address the council to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak?
Seeing none, Your Honor, I'd move we close the public hearing.
Second.
Councilman Bailey. Councilman Bailey has the motion. Kyle, Councilman Larson has the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passed. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 22-005 on first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Borders has the motion. Councilwoman Cox has the second. Further discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Public hearing and consideration of ordinance number 22-006 on first reading, R4 residential zoning revisions. Community Development Director's report, please.
Yes, Your Honor, Council. Again, City Council requested that the Planning Commission conduct research and provide insight into the R4's residential zoning for the City of Riverton. The Planning Commission formed an R4 committee that researched and provided options to change some R4 zoning requirements. The proposal was presented in front of City Council on April 19th, and the changes were received with positivity. This ordinance is a change directly based on the R4 committee's recommendations. Changes to the lot area, height, and floor area are being recommended for change in code to clearly define what is allowed on a lot zoned R4. The changes recommended remove code that cascades from R4 to R1. As we look at changes to Riverton Municipal Code 17.40.020.40.030, there's quite a few changes in there, and there's quite a few omissions, and I'd like to kind of just go into a little bit of detail as to what cascading code is and how it affects the way that our current R4 code is written and why we're looking at the verbiage. So what cascading code formally is that in R1 zoning, the rules and regulations that are in R1 zoning, if you own an R4 lot, you can build a single-family residence. If you're gonna build a single-family residence on an R4 lot, the rules for R1 apply to that. The rules for R2 on an R4 lot also apply. So if you own a R4 lot and you would like to build a nice duplex, the rules that apply in R2 cascade down to R4 for that duplex. What our R4 code currently, where you see all the stricken lines, all of those codes from R1 and R2 are written in the R4 code. And then the R4 rules and regulations that do exist here are covered up. So we see minimum square footage of 800, we see minimum square footage of 450, and we see minimum square footage of 300 square feet per living unit. All of those currently apply in R4. Now they're all listed here, but it's minimum of 800 square foot for an R1, single family residence, minimum of 450 square foot for a duplex, and minimum of 300 square foot for an R4. So when we see that, it's quite confusing when you're reading through the code to see all that cascaded code in there listed as once, and it's not being referenced properly. You don't know that it's cascaded. You just see multiple different rules and regulations in there that state that. So there's not a proposal to change the actual allowable square footage for an R4. It is what is proposed in the document is the same as what's allowed today. We're just removing out all of that conflicting cascading code to make it clear, to make it understandable. There's also, we do have the language for open parking garages added in there as well. And then we also have, let's see, when we look at changes to Riverton Municipal Code 17.40.020 lot area, if we go to section B, there is a section of code that's written in here. The lot area for a multifamily dwelling must be a minimum of 4,000 square feet plus 450 square feet for each additional living unit greater than 2. And what we're doing there, what that code does, I don't know where that code was ever created, but it was written in here. It creates an algebraic equation as to how many living units you can have on a lot by square feet. The problem is all of the other restrictions within the code, you can never get to this number. So if we take a 1 acre lot of 43,560 square feet, and we start putting this equation in here of 4,000 square feet for the first 450 square feet for each additional living unit, we can get over 90 units by math. 90 units by math on a lot. The problem with that is when we look at our current parking restrictions that exist with some language that we would possibly like to change and possibly look at those numbers and what those calculations are to make sure that science is good. We can't get anywhere near that number because we have required parking that we have to provide. We have required square footage that we have to provide for setbacks and everything else. So adding that in there creates this perception. It's the second line of code for R4. So when you read it, that's the very first math that you do. And when somebody sees an R4 lot that's going to be 7 acres and they start doing the math, 7 times 90, oh my Lord, that's huge. And that creates this false number in the code. And there's no way, that math is not a driver, is not an end-run driver for anything on there. It exists, but all of the other regulations step that down multiple times. So the R4 committee chose to look at what R4 looks like without those perception problems in the code. Just pull that out of there. Let's read it, and so when we look at it, we read, we get rid of a lot of the complexity of it, and then we read, you can't cover more than 50% of your lot. You can use an open parking garage structure. Off-street parking must be provided per the parking regulations, which we can talk about in a second. And then you have the maximum height. When we go to 030, a height and floor area, that's where we get into where all the cascading code from R1 and R2 exists in there as well. And that adds that complexity of that. And so we go into height and floor area where now we're just looking at a building height of 50 feet and a floor area minimum living unit per 300 square feet per living unit. Now, 300 square feet is small. We all know 300 square feet is quite small. The question was asked earlier, and we can ask Chief, what's the square footage of a cell that we have at the building here, do you know?
I have no idea.
They 8 by 5 or something like that. Not a whole lot bigger than one of the cells, but we have to, we want to make sure we look at what we're currently doing in the city in this type of environment and what some applications that maybe wouldn't be what you're thinking of. When we think R4, most people just think apartment complexes. But we also have assisted living facilities that have the ability to, privately owned assisted living facilities have the ability to function in an R4. And so if we look at the REACH Foundation, the R4 committee went out and done some research out there, and they have studios that are between 305 and 308 square feet. Downtown, the hotel downtown, and I'm not going to think of the name.
Teton.
Yeah, Teton. Teton has 350 square foot studios for rent there as well. Maybe not what you or I think of as a living space, but in today's market, maybe with $1,400 and $1,600 rental properties out there, maybe a 300 square foot unit might be what we're looking for. Again, that's not a change to the code. That's the code today. It's just what we're doing is clearing that up and making that language exist. And so the second printout that I have there has the same drawing as before with the same square footage, and we start talking about what those parking regulations are, so you can kind of see what the driver for that lot is. When we look at square footage, if we say, well, 300 square foot, that's not very much. You could put 200 of those on a lot. Well, you have to supply parking. Your residents have to have parking, and one of the things that's one of the largest problems that we have with multifamily dwellings in the city of Riverton right now is there are a lot of multifamily dwellings, apartment complexes, or small quadplexes like that, do not have proper parking, and they occupy streets. And so a block in every direction from the building is car, stop sign, cars all the way down, because they're either not zoned properly or were built under different circumstances and were changed to quadplexes, and things were added, and life happens. But those applicable parking rules and regulations weren't applied there. If you go and talk to the people that live in those neighborhoods, in the single-family houses across the street, they don't necessarily have a problem with the apartment. They have a problem with the people that park in front of their house 365 days a year, and there's nothing that anybody can really do about it after the fact. But before the fact, when we put rules in place that state parking is required, we can say this is how we're going to do it. Currently, the law states, currently our rules do state minimum requirements per the parking guidelines. The parking guidelines do have numbers in there. We've talked about those numbers is 1 parking lot per studio, 1.5 per 1-bedroom apartment, and half a car is a smart car, Your Honor, I believe. That's what we deduced. But the committee would like to look at the parking regulations and look at what those numbers mean and do they apply today. But if we look at 22.006-006, the ordinance, we can reference the parking guidelines as they are the rule today, make the corrections today, and the committee can go in depth into what those numbers, if we need to look at changing them or modifying them, but we're using those numbers as a standard today, and we can use them moving forward. By cleaning the code up, we feel that R4 is a lot cleaner and makes a lot more sense and is very understandable for a developer to look at and figure out. With that, I'll answer any questions or any follow-up.
Your Honor, I appreciate you explaining it all earlier, and it
Absolutely.
cleared it up a lot for me, so.
Anybody else? Kyle?
Have you driven up 16th East?
Yes.
So, you're saying that each home, those houses, have a half a car?
So for the single family?
Yeah.
Single family homes?
Yeah,
So the rules that are in place for the single family homes is a minimum of two.
minimum of 2 spaces.
2 spaces, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the existing rule for that. Now, I know through some discussion that we had with the last council meeting when we talked about the parking, that you had some concerns about are those numbers real? And the planning commission would like to look at those numbers in the parking guidelines for single family, for R2, for R1, R2, R2A, and R4 zoning, and see what those numbers should be, look at some industry standards, see if the world's changed from when they were created. I couldn't even tell you what decade those numbers actually come from.
Stone Age. Stone Age, they were,
I tried to research that, and I couldn't come up with when those numbers really were created, because they've existed for quite a while.
1870.
And so I think it's pertinent that we look at the language for the code, and I think it's really important that we do look at those numbers and see what the city of Riverton actually needs for minimum requirements in each category.
Yeah, you drive on Mary Ann or 16th East, in Mary Ann, I own a fourplex there, and I've got parking in the front, I've got parking in the back. And technically, I should only have 8 cars there.
Chief?
My math is bad, but I always come up with more
A
than
lot of
8.
Mercedes.
No. My Mercedes are in the garage or behind the building here. But I'm just wondering if we aren't, well, if Mike will keep the gas down, we'd have cars, but we're gonna be parking them pretty quick.
You wouldn't believe what it'd be if I wasn't keeping it down.
I know it. I'm proud of you. I remember your father.
Let's don't go there.
Let's not go there. But realistically,
Check his coat.
realistically, I don't think the number of cars has upgraded in a number of years.
Well,
I think households have more than that. I think our mayor has more than that.
well, let's
And I didn't mean to throw it at you. You're a common individual.
understand that over the establishment of Riverton, the Black Edition, which is 16th Street, was put in the 60s, and it was very common to not have a garage and very common to have a single car access.
That's right.
And so when you look at the development of those lots, they have single car driveways and small frontage area, and at times no alleys. And so things have changed. The typical house plan today is run off of at least 2 cars, possibly 3 cars, and yet you can't go back and eliminate parking on 16th Street because it was built in the 60s. But it does create a lot of hardship. Our police department takes a lot of complaints over the fact that we all go out and get a 35 triple tandem trailer house and camper and park it out in the middle of the street. And so if you go back through that parking, you'll find that you can't park a vehicle over 20 feet long, which eliminates all of our trucks, which every one of us are driving. And so that's just an evolution of usage. And so it's very difficult to say, okay, if you're gonna live on 16th Street, you can only have one car, and it has to be 19 feet long.
Well, as you move from East Park towards Webwood, the lot sizes change, the number of parking spaces change, and it spreads out. I mean, if there are some, I don't know the name of them, there are some that have 5-car garages, but they're not parking on the street. They've made allowances for the parking of extra vehicles. That's all I'm saying is, you know, when we're looking at it, this is now. Well, it's common, we shouldn't change, we need to change it.
I absolutely agree with you, Councilman, and that's why the Planning Commission wants to look at those individual numbers in the parking guidelines and see what they need to be today.
Yeah, thank you, okay. I'm through.
Your Honor.
All right.
Yes, Mike?
And again, I think your parking based on bedrooms probably fits well with R4, which is all we're talking about tonight.
Right.
I agree, we should probably look at R1 and 2 and see if we want to change that. The problem is if we make the cars per bedroom higher than what he has on the list, you're going to not be able to get any units on this 1 acre lot, for example, in his example here. So I think it's probably a pretty good, middle of the road number.
Well, the only.
And I think most of the higher density housing would be lower cars per unit if you wanted to put them all in a big basket. I don't think this same number would work in R1, because if you have a 4-bedroom house, that means you gotta have three,
Cars and a lawnmower?
at least 3 spaces.
Well,
And I think if you were building a new house right now, that's probably what you would build. But I think if we're trying to push that back on existing facilities, like Kyle's saying, there's some of those that were back in the 60s that would never be able to qualify, which then when they go to get a building permit to do something to their house, are we gonna hold them to that?
No,
There's,
absolutely not.
that,
It's, at that point, it's a great question, Councilman. At that point, anything that's existing like that is continued use,
Right.
operates under continued use.
It's grandfather. It's a grandfather condition.
What-
Yeah, it's kind of depending on the language, we use both terms, grandfathered or continued use, but yeah, we wouldn't have the ability to take a house on 16th, and if they were remodeling their garage, say, you've got to add more parking, blanket. Now, if they demo that lot down to dirt and want to rebuild it, then that's a different, that's not the same structure, that's a different conversation. We have to be flexible, in that on how we can use our land.
yeah.
And so, on the single-family side and on the duplex side, the conversation, it gets quite a bit more complex because
Well,
the duration of, just the
Yeah, 'cause
duration of the community. But it doesn't, to this.
Your Honor, to me, the higher density housing, again, they're less likely to have a camper and a boat and, all this stuff that we're talking about that ends up filling up their parking and the street and all of that. So I think we're pretty good where we're at.
the only thing, though,
On our-
is on Woodridge, those houses, they have parking internally on that. Then if they have parking internally, why is Redwood, excuse me, that's the street that runs one in, both sides are full of cars because they're back exits and they can walk out over the lawn and get into their cars. And so we've got double cars and yet we've still got parking internally. So, you know, that's all I'm trying to say is we need to look at numbers and utilize that. Oh, we can't make a profit. Oh, come on. The whole thing is we don't want to utilize our roads for their parking. That's what I'm trying to say.
Well, and isn't this ordinance just doing that? That we're pointing out that we can, depending on the different units, you can either have 18 spaces or 27 spaces in an acre's lot.
Right.
And
But
so,
if I'm looking at it in all honesty, and we've got a R4 unit going in across from the high school, I don't want to see any cars parked on that high school road going up East Sunset on the one side. You know, well, we can't get them in there. Well, tough nitty. You gotta be parking in your own space.
yeah, and I think that's an interesting comment because you can park anywhere you can find a parking spot on a city street,
Oh, yeah,
right?
yeah,
And so what you're trying to get across is that when it's long-term parking, it should be kept within the confines of the apartment unit, not using city streets.
correct. That's all I'm trying to say. Thank you, Mayor.
And I can understand that, and I think we have the conduit to make that happen. That we can actually say, hey, this is common use area, not for general parking.
Yeah,
I think and we can turn that back to the planning commission, but I think that already exists. The problem is convenience. If I am living in an apartment complex and I want to park my boat on the main street, I do that until somebody points out that is an infraction to your parking requirements.
Correct, Your Honor. When it's an infraction, then it's, are we, you know, at what capacity are we patrolling those rules and regulations? A lot of the parking regulations that aren't handled by the PD and the public right away are handled by us via complaint. You know,
we've got one situation just like that. It's on Aspen, on the corner of Aspen and 16th. And this gentleman lives there, and I don't know if anyway, he has a trailer, and he has maybe 8 or 10 cars, and his neighbors down the way can't even see the street sign. Maybe that was the reason why that guy went ballistic and started shooting. He was fed up with the parking. Nevertheless, that only exists during the summertime. And the neighbor complains about it, and he moves the trailer 4 feet and says, done, you know, I get another extension. And it's just, you know, we've got to be good to our neighbors and try and help each other, but anyway, okay, I'm through.
Well, I think Mike's point, Councilman Bailey's point is that what we're discussing is R4
Right.
at the moment, not general parking regulations inside the city of Riverton. And so I think this is a good fix for R4, and we can reassign back to the planning commission the possibility to bring us some information. The likelihood of that, though, is that what you would end up requiring is that you would cost people, you could actually, if you write an ordinance too strictly, what you're going to find is that people have to put those extra units that they have in parking facilities that they don't necessarily have close usage on. And so we would need that to be kind of a discussion that we spend longer time on. So let's move on this one and see what we can do. Would the city clerk please read ordinance number 22-006 by title only?
Yes, Your Honor. Proposed ordinance number 22-006 on first reading. An ordinance amending Title 17 zoning, Chapter 17.40, R4 Residential District, Section 17.40.020, Law Area, Section 17.40.030, Height and Floor Area of the Riverton Municipal Code, and repealing all ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict therewith and providing for an effective date.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to open a public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Larson has the motion. Carla, was that you?
Yes, Your Honor.
Councilwoman Borders has the second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. I declare that the public hearing is open. The hearing will be conducted in accordance with state statute and other applicable laws. I would ask those individuals wishing to address the council to approach the podium and identify yourself for the record.
Bethany Baldus. I'm a real estate agent in town. I know you guys thought you were going to get lucky tonight, but I was super excited this afternoon. I got to have a repeat conversation with a client that I had 6 months ago, where we went through the R4 zoning, and I was able to pull out the proposed R4 and go through with my client what they would be able to do on a piece of lot, if this goes through, on a lot, if this goes through. And getting rid of all of that language, because I'm not going to lie, we were doing exactly that. It was math equations and trying to figure out, and you get to the bottom and it says 300 here, and it was a lot easier process, and I think that it's going to assist developers as they move forward to start building here. The Planning Commission did decide to take out the conversation of parking so that we could move forward on this and try to attack the parking issue beyond, and at a different date, but so that we can start moving forward with R4. So thank you all for your consideration.
Thanks, Bethany. Appreciate your service. Any other questions? Anybody else wishing to speak?
Congratulations.
I offered to buy them dinner instead of watch council, but they chose the more exciting thing to do. So,
Your Honor, seeing none, I move that we close the public hearing.
thank you. Councilman Bailey has the motion. Did I hear a second?
Your Honor.
Councilwoman Borders has a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. The chair would entertain a motion to adopt ordinance number 22-006 on first reading.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Larson has the motion. Councilman Bailey has the second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Consideration of order, the consideration of the airport ground lease transfer from the M&J Luxury LLC to Henderson Strategy Funding LLC. Public Works Director's report, please.
Thank you, Your Honor. M&J Leisure LLC holds 2 ground leases at Central Wyoming Regional Airport. The first is a hangar that supports Classic Air Medical, and the second supports fuel tanks that are privately owned and operated by Classic Air Medical. Chad Henderson of M&J Leisure and also Allegiance Leasing recently contacted the city and informed us that the leasehold improvements had been transferred to his brother, and maybe more specifically to Henderson Strategic Fund LLC. In light of that transfer, the leases associated with the leasehold improvements need to be assigned or transferred as well. The existing lease agreements do allow for an assignment or transfer of those interests, and all it takes is the city's consent prior to doing so. That's what you're doing tonight. Really, there's not much change as far as operation goes. It's transferring from one brother to another, and just a different business name. However, the classic air medical operations are not proposed to be changed. This is just ensuring that our records are accurate with who owns the structures themselves. In light of that, city staff recommends that the city council in 2 separate motions approves the assignment or transfer of the aforementioned lease agreements from M&J Leisure to Henderson Strategic Fund LLC. Thank you, Your Honor.
Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the transfer or assignment of rights, privileges, usage, or interest of the lease and agreement on Lot 7 of the tank farm plat between the City of Riverton and M&J Leisure LLC and Henderson Strategy Funding LLC.
So moved.
Second.
Councilman Toronto has the motion. Councilwoman Cox has a second. Further discussion?
I think it was Councilwoman Borders, Your Honor.
Thank you. You girls are going to have to yell. I apologize for that. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed, say nay. Motion passes. The chair would entertain a motion to approve the transfer or lease of rights, privileges, usages, or interest on the ground lease agreements at 4790 Airport Road between the City of Riverton and M&J Leisure LLC to Henderson Strategy Funding LLC.
So moved.
Second.
Councilwoman Salisbury has the motion. Councilman Bailey has the second. Further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. Council committee reports and council members roundtable. Christie, could you start us off?
Yes, for the May chamber meeting, I was gone for a medical appointment, but I want to thank Janet for what she's been through, Winslow, being a chamber executive director. I haven't been on the chamber for very long, because I've about a year and a half, a little longer than Janet, but I know what she walked into as far as financials, organization, different things, and I think she's done a lot that people don't realize that she's done to bring this to Riverton, and I think it's unfortunate, whatever happened at the May meeting, that it couldn't have been handled differently amongst people working together. I do appreciate it, and I want you to know that I've seen the work you've done, and I appreciate the work you've done, and moving forward, I think the chamber's in a better place than it was before you were there, and I really do appreciate that. And I want people to know that she's done a lot to put things together. The chamber, prior things that happened in the chamber made some of the concerns brought up earlier. People, with some of the bylaws, it wasn't possible to follow some of them because of the situation we were in. And some things I think are taking out of context. We have wonderful people working on the ambassadors and the chamber. The transition didn't go as smoothly because I don't think people had personal agendas as much as wanting to promote Riverton. And the inclusion of that, I just hope that it can work itself out because it really is important for our city, so thank you. The other thing I want to mention is I want to thank the council and Mayor Guard for your leadership during the Riverton Medical District's last 3 years and 8 months to get a hospital for our city. I didn't renew my membership. I thought 3 years and 8 months was enough to be on the board. I didn't want to do another 3-year run with that. So with the reorganization of the board, it opens up positions. 4 of us did not renew. It allows a couple more, I guess, better expertise moving forward for the operations that should be there. And it was a long process, and I just really want to tell Mayor Guard your stance with the community and behind us and promoting it made a huge difference in the success of it, so thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Kyle.
I haven't been to any meetings, but
Attended the airport meeting and felt very comfortable about the continued growth in our passenger carry and our supervision of the airport itself. We've got lots that have sold, which we are all aware of, and the feeling of wellness because we passed we're supporting it with tax dollars, I realize that, but it does a lot for us. And with the new hospital, there's 4 things that make a city grow, and we now have those in place. Second thing, I attended the waste management, and that is well run. They have 25 employees, and they're not like our police department. They don't have to replace them all the time, or they're not quitting, going somewhere else. So they are paid a premium for the work area that they work in. And that's hard for the county to understand that. Not everybody wants to work with solid waste and have that smell. When I used to raise goats a long time ago when I was younger and stupider, my wife made me take my clothes off out in the garage as far away from the house as possible because they had such a particular aroma.
I'm pretty sure that's a felony.
Oh, yeah. Anyway, so that workplace, solid waste is a premium. The other thing that I think is really quite outstanding is, well, there's 2 things. Over the last weekend, there was an open house in Du Bois for the Military Museum, which was a rousing success. A lot of people showed up. And if you didn't get it right in a tank or shoot a 45 caliber machine gun, that was your own fault. Then the arcade that they've got in the bakery is good enough that, you know, you don't have to go to Buster's in Salt Lake City and have your eardrums busted. But that's really good because Fremont County is growing. Last thing I have to say is I was proud to see the Sportsman's Warehouse open up and its parking lot was full. And if you're not aware of it, sales dollars, tax dollars comes, and that's what making our economy and keeping the city of Riverton afloat. Shop local, spend local, buy Mike's tires and gas, and Perano's computers and his phones, and keep the money circulating here in Riverton. Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle. Appreciate it. Dean?
Challenge to follow up Kyle. I just built a shop to take care of my vehicle, so I'm all garage doors. Fremont County School District 25 had their rec board meeting last night, and pretty much the most important thing to come from that meeting was that we clarified the policy that requires all grant applicants that they provide actual invoices to receive repayment for those grants. And although that might seem kind of logical on the surface, we had a few organizations like RREC. Every year they come and we pay a certain amount, and it's really easy to get away from requiring those actual invoices. But then, you get another group that says, well, gee, our rec doesn't do it, so why should we? So one of the stipulations we have in our policy is that we reimburse based on invoices. So we just kind of reiterated that requirement be kind of first and foremost, and that we pay based on invoices. So post our last audit, which went very well, we just want to make sure that we ensure that consistency. So that was kind of the long and short of last night's meeting, and that's all I have, Your Honor.
Thanks. We appreciate it. Councilman Bailey.
Thank you. Again, I was at the airport board meeting with Kyle, and again, I think it's doing very well. Again, the rising cost of everything is still a factor, and that's something we have to keep an eye on. But so far, with the assistance of the state of Wyoming, helping cover a lot of stuff with some, and I forget what the acronym for the funds are, but federal money that they're passing on down to us, so that has helped. So we're in a really good position in that respect. But as things go, we still have to watch it, and the city of Riverton still has to pick up, all the operations of the airport and that kind of stuff. And so, but again, thank God our economy is growing and we have new businesses opening up, and things are moving along very well. So it's exciting to see in town. And I apologize for being gone for the last couple of meetings, but I had to go to Washington, D.C. for the petroleum marketer meeting, and so I'm always very glad to be back home after that. And but we put a good word in for all of our representatives and senators out there, and told them keep sending money. So, and then we also had to travel to another meeting, and so the planes, when we flew out and in, were relatively full, and so I think we're getting good ridership on the airplanes, and our numbers are holding up as good or a little bit better than they were last year, which I think is a great sign. And with the costs going up, you assume people would be cutting back maybe a little bit. It doesn't seem to be affecting it as much as I would think it would. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Thanks, Mike. Lindsay?
All right, well, I've been gone for a minute also, so kind of catch up what I've done in the last month. I went to the senior meeting with Mia, and they have projects underway, but like everyone else, they're just waiting on delayed product. So they're working on a lot of improvements, but waiting as well. So hopefully they get some response sooner than later. Again, with the rec board meeting last night, wanted to mention that the Raiders were funded for their uniforms, and they will, if you want to see their new uniforms, they're playing this weekend here. And there will also be an alumni game, so that's Friday night after the C team has a doubleheader. I'm not sure on the exact time, but it'd be fun because we got a lot of guys coming out of retirement to play baseball. So I did Dancing with the Stars at the beginning of May, and we raised $80,000 for CES, and that was a great event. And I don't think I'll be dancing again. I'm going to retire after this year, but I will definitely attend because it was fun to watch. I attended kindergarten graduation, and that was fun to see all those students dressed up in their little graduation cap and gown. And then I also participated in a workshop with the school district for a profile of a graduate right after that. And so that was interesting because we talked about what our students need to prepare to graduate, and not just their classes, but the core things that we're taught just in life and how we implement that back into the school. So that was a really great workshop. There were probably 25, 30 members of the community there. And I thought it was a good conversation, and I'm excited to see what they do from here on out. And I tried a sub sandwich at 381 this week, and it was fantastic, and it's fun to see a new business with something to try. And I'm gonna go try a salad here shortly because that sounds like a next option. So excited to see new businesses. And that's it.
Thank you. Carla?
Your Honor, I have not attended any meetings. There haven't been any yet. I am excited to go to the WHAM convention for the next 3 days. That's in Laramie, and I'm just looking forward to seeing everything that I can learn and what's available. So it'll be my first time going. So I'm looking forward to that. On another note, driving around town, I just want to put a little reminder out to people to get their weeds under control. A lot of businesses, they're really getting high, and I understand it's been a wet season, but it's dry now and it's time to get them mowed down. And that's all I've got.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Tony?
Thank you, Your Honor. We do have a meeting next week at 5:30 PM. That is the budget adoption one. Wanted to make sure everybody was reminded of that. We do, staff will be attending legislative leadership on the 16th and at WHAM. We're planning on still having both of those at this point, but that could change. If there are any legislative items or questions or ideas, we always like to hear those. Happy to have any input, and I can convey that. IDEA Inc. will meet on the 16th. RECDA will meet on the 22nd, that's 7 a.m. at the Sundowner. Public is welcome. Speaking of emplanements, our recent emplanements topped 1,155, which is the second best in the last 10 years, if for May. And so, speaking of great air service, there you go. Those are great numbers to be having. And I think we only missed that one, the record by 15? 50. Well, I like 15 better. So I'm rounding differently. As Councilwoman Borders pointed out, we will be at WHAM the rest of the week. We are looking forward to that. And I would like to, the last item is extend a congratulations to our city clerk, Kristen Watson. She received a gubernatorial appointment to the State Historical Records Committee, and she will be serving on that. We're very proud of her and all the good work she does, so congratulations to her.
Could she find out when the black subdivision was put in on 16th Street?
I'm sure I could, Your Honor.
Appreciate it. That's a really big honor, Kristen, and we really appreciate the hard work you put in to do that. So thank you very much. I thought I was going to get to the airport numbers without anybody stealing my thunder. Thanks, Tony. But the numbers at the airport are amazing, and for all of the, I've been attached to this for a number of years. We think we fix it, and then gas prices go haywire, and yet the flying public in Fremont County need to be commended for their willingness to stay with the program and fly the flights out and to continue to bring that economic value into Riverton. Tony pointed out to me today, and maybe you have that close, the sales tax is up, and we're fortunate for that, and that tells us one thing, that people are buying locally and continuing to shop locally and support local restaurants and local businesses, and that's how we are going to continue to thrive and make a difference in Riverton, is to be self-supporting and have those economic drives work for us. So do you have those numbers, Tony?
Yes, Your Honor. We do budget overtly conservative, as we talked about, but even with our conservative numbers, we will finish the year round about, if I combine sales and use, about 380,000 ahead of projection in sales and use tax combined. So that's really nice to hear. Some of that is planned into the existing or the coming budget, but those are really good numbers, and we like to hear them, which means that all of our other estimates are holding pretty solid too, which includes half cent and the like. So those are great numbers, and we're appreciative of that.
And so when we go back to the airport numbers, there's lots of people to be thanked for that. The FAST committee is probably top on the list of diligent workers that Kyle is in charge of and spearheads that group. Kyle needs a lot of praise for the effort that happens at the airport. The airport board, which Councilman Paranto has sat on for 12 years, has been a big part of holding that glue together, and so there's just a whole lot of people that we need to thank for the effort that's there. The budget this year is up about $6 million, and that is because of work that is going to be done at the airport. And so lots of times we just don't understand the backside of that. Mia has to carry that load and make sure that that money gets where it's supposed to be. And Kyle has to do those things, and we really do appreciate it. It looks to impact our budget and make us sound like we have a lot larger budget than we did last year, but we're grateful for their help and for their looking forward to keep us on the forward path and growing. I was able to attend the Planning Commission and Mr. Miller is doing a wonderful job with the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission does a yeoman's job, and it's not an easy thing to understand. Parking and why are we parking and where are we parking and whose campers whose. And so I appreciate the work that they do, and especially for the Baldezes to enjoy their anniversary with us. What a wonderful thing that is for us. I get lots of little things to do that probably are important, but not things that I can do. And a cover went missing off of one of the canal embankments, and I went up and measured it, and the homeowner that was close to that facility was the one that was complaining. A grate got lost into the canal and made an opening into the tube, and so I mentioned it to Kyle Butterfield, and Kyle knew the right people to call, and within a day that grate was back on, and I checked it yesterday, and it is in place and working, so I appreciate that. I have two notes that in the past 2 weeks that I've met with the Chamber facilities, and I appreciate the Chamber of Riverton. And Janet, you've done a wonderful job with that, and we appreciate what you've done. It's a bumpy road, and that is not under the purview of the city. We have a liaison that works to that facility, and we wish you guys well with what you're doing and anything that we can do in support. We would like to be in total unison with the chamber. So I did have a 6:30 a.m. meeting with the other mayors in Lander, which was a very useful meeting. I attended a almost 5-hour meeting with the FTAG out in Pavilion. Pavilion has a brand new city hall, pretty fancy for Pavilion. And they got a modular trailer moved in. A lot of thanks to Representative Larson that helped them find funds for that through the state, and greatly needed and appreciated. I also had a meeting with Tony and the judge and the city attorney, which is very profitable. You know, one of these things just keep slamming into each other, and one thing leads to the next, and it's nice to be informed and understand from the ground of how we work those things. Our court staff, I believe there have 6,800 open cases in Riverton staff court, and that boils down to about 1,800 individuals that have multiple warrants and those types of things that they have to carry. And the judge and the attorney are doing their very best to help us clear those. I also was in a land sale meeting that Tony and Kyle helped set up so that we could clear up some problems on a piece of land up at the airport. I worked with the adjacent owner on that for road access, and I think we can take care of that. Today, I was also in a DWI meeting that Tony was in the meeting with me, and so was the chief. Those are hard meetings, and I hate to even repeat the numbers because they're high. And we need to understand, and the people of Riverton need to understand that DWI is a problem in Fremont County, and we have to get those numbers to come down and support the programs that are in place. There's a new program called 24/7, which requires people to check in morning and evening to blow to make sure that they stay sober. And that program is making a big difference. Out of the 34 fatalities that have happened statewide, 5 of those have happened in Fremont County, none in our jurisdiction. Correct, Chief?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
But out of those 5, all 5 of those were alcohol-related. And so statewide, of the 34 fatalities, only 12% of those were related to alcohol or substance abuse. And so we're trying really hard to put things into place and trying to lower those numbers in Fremont County. And we will continue to stay on that. So I appreciate the opportunity to sit on that committee and to work with the people. How many guys were there? We probably had law enforcement, we had the undersheriff, we had the Fort Washakie chief, we had the Lander chief, the Riverton chief, highway patrol officer.
Yes, sir.
So those are just the law enforcement. We had city administrator was there. We had a representative from the county attorney. We had a county judge with us. Judge Robertson was there. So important meeting and well worth the time spent, and we're trying our very best to turn the corner on that. So anything that people can do to help us with that, or suggestions that would be vital that we could use, we would appreciate that information. That concludes my comments. We do have an executive session tonight on real estate and personnel. The chair would entertain a motion to convene into executive session for the purpose of real estate, consideration of site, selection, or purchase of real estate in accordance with Wyoming State Statute 16-4-405A VII, and personnel, consideration of appointment, employment, right of practice, dismissal, complaints, or charges against public officers, professional persons, or employees in accordance with Wyoming State Statute 16-4-405 AII, and for the purpose of considering offers, tendering wages, salaries, benefits, or terms of employment during negotiations in accordance with Wyoming Statute 16-4-405 AX.
Second.
Councilman Ferranto has the motion. Councilman Larson has the second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. The chair would invite Kristen and Tony to accompany us into the executive session. Thank you. The chair would entertain a motion to reconvene into regular session.
So moved.
Second.
Kyle, Councilman Larson has a motion, and Councilwoman Cox has a second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, say nay. Motion passes. We're reconvening into regular session at 9:04. No action items required. And so with that said, unless there's objection, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.